There is no way, right? As a recent article has come out proposing a trade with the Boston Bruins involving a former 110-point player. We're going to be breaking this down, going over what this could mean for the Bruins going forward, as well as we also have a major update regarding John Beecher, as he has spoken out about his role on this Bruins team. We're going to be breaking it all down here in this video. Like I said, going over a very interesting trade report. Before we do jump into all the news here today, though, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to hit the sub button if you haven't already. We still got a lot of Bruins news coming out, as reports have been indicating that the market is going to be heating up around this team very, very soon. You won't want to miss it. We know that just over 60% of you guys watching right now have not hit that sub button already, but we need to jump straight into this, because obviously there's been a lot of major reports coming down about what's going on with this team and what could change before the beginning of the season. And going into this, we've been seeing some reports regarding, of course, Pavel Zacha, Casey Mittelstadt. We've been knowing those two being the real big ones, but going on to this as well, who would they have to replace those two players on the second line? That's been my big question, at least, going forward. And I know you guys have had the same question as well. And I wanted to pull up this article from heavysports.com, or heavy.com, I should say, actually, and going into this trade proposal, which is a very interesting one. And let's say, initially, people may not like it, but when we dive deeper into this, things are looking very interesting on the Bruins side of things. But going into this, the Bruins get Jonathan Huberdeau from the Calgary Flames in exchange for Casey Mittelstadt. Now, this deal by itself right here with no extra information doesn't look the greatest, let's be honest. Of course, we know Jonathan Huberdeau is making an exorbitant amount of money. Casey Mittelstadt also doing the same. We're looking to get rid of Casey Mittelstadt, but there's no way that he would have this much value. And going into, the whole kind of trade market, at least right now, we see not really anything getting brought back in return for Casey Mittelstadt of value, or anything that seems like it is of value. But when we're diving into this, and like I said, we're going to jump into the remainder of the article, or the more important part of this article here in a moment, things could look very interesting. But even then, it makes things a very challenging, place for this Calgary Flames and Boston Bruins trade. Now, going in, this is what we're kind of dealing with right now, at least. And they say this deal would be contingent on the Flames retaining 50% of Huberdeau's salary. It's worth pointing out that Huberdeau is entering the third year of his 8-year, $84 million deal signed in 2023. With the retention, that would keep half of Huberdeau's salary on the Flames' books for another 5 years. Half is better than the full $10.5 million cap hit. Now, the end part there is pretty obvious, but retaining 50% of $10 million, having $5 million on the books for 5 years, there is a slim to no chance that the Calgary Flames do this without getting a hefty haul in return. Now, we know the Bruins have quite a few picks, but when you're coming down to making a decision like this, whether you get rid of Casey Mittelstadt for a player like Jonathan Huberdeau, who over the past few seasons ultimately has not been great, definitely was not the player he was in Florida, and being a 5-year, 5 more years on his deal, being 38 when he expires, being the position he is in right now, still a first-line left winger, but has not been able to keep up with the pace that he had in Florida. And kind of going into it, I'll pull up his stats here. You're going to see 115 points in 80 games, then a major drop-off to 55 in 79 with Calgary, and has never really excelled with Calgary as much as he has with the Florida Panthers. And even though, you see a 78, a 92, a 69 over the course of his Florida Panthers career, that player seems to be gone. Now, one very notable thing as well, this Calgary Flames team is not nearly as good as the Florida Panthers. And the Bruins are kind of in the middle, I would say, of both. The Florida Panthers, very, very deep, very, very deep up and down, wherever they may choose. The Calgary Flames, definitely a good team, but ultimately just doesn't seem like the fit for Jonathan Huberdeau, and having his fit in this team doesn't really make the most sense for the Flames, although, initially, before the trade happened with Matthew Tkachuk, seemed like it would have worked. Now, going into where this would mean for the Bruins, this causes a lot of issues and kind of, ideas of who would go where, what would happen in this forward lineup. And of course, Morgan Geekie, I think there's zero way he comes off this first line. They signed him as a player of the future, $5.5 million deal for 6 years, an absolute steal. Let's not get that wrong. Casey Mittelstadt right now, the second-line left winger. Him and Pavel Zacha can really flip-flop whether who plays center, who don't, and going from there, there's a lot of options that could be thrown into the mix. And Victor Arvidsson coming in, second-line right winger, but let's just say Pavel Zacha and Casey Mittelstadt both get traded. As I've been mentioning, you're kind of left in the dust there on your second line. Are you really going to put Sean Corrali and Tanner Jeannot on your second line? the Bruins would need to get something in return. And of course, we have prospects, but whether or not they're NHL ready seems to be a big question for not just us, but for the Bruins as well. So taking a look at this Jonathan Huberdeau type of trade, whether or not you give up multiple first-round picks, multiple prospects, whatever would happen, there needs to be a lot more added to this deal to make it so Calgary does retain contract. Now, if they don't, there is a possibility there. 10.5, though, a lot of money to be able to allocate. The Bruins would need to make more moves, but overall, this deal looks nice on paper, really would be way too much to deal with and way too much work to be put into it to get a little result. Now, if this was off a 115-point season, I think you'd be in a different situation there, a different kind of mindset. But right now, this don't seem like the greatest type of move to be able to make for this Bruins team. Now, we do have another thing I wanted to pull up before we do finish the video off. This comes around talking about John Beecher. He's spoken out about his new kind of role with this Boston Bruins team, and he said there's always room on an NHL bottom six for a player who can do that effectively night in, night out. That's what John Beecher told Boston Globe's Kevin Paul DuPont, and he wants to become that for the Bruins. Now, when we do take a reminder and kind of look back at last season, we know that fourth line to begin the season was a phenomenal, really the only line that had positivity coming for this team. And having, I kind of take a look back at it, John Beecher, Mark Kastlik, and Justin Brazeau, there was a lot of surprises on that team and on that line coming to become one of the best lines in the NHL at that time. But that just goes to show that John Beecher's role with this team is still very much there. He's definitely taken a little step back since the beginning of since that kind of tenure on that line last year, but going to take a look at what he's done and also more quotes coming out that we're going to touch on here in a moment. His role on a bottom six pairing, whether it be the third line, the fourth line, he's a player that you really want to have on that one. He's a dog player, on the face-off circle. He's very good, whether he's playing wing or in the middle. He's a guy that's also been able to just remain consistent over his career, and that's one thing I think that this Bruins team are very much going to value, especially coming into this season where you're going to have really one powerhouse line, a second line, which there's a lot of questions surrounding, and you're going to need to get your bottom six to step up. So the fact that we're seeing this come out with John Beecher, I think he's knowing his new role, knowing his role on this team more so than, hey, I'm going to try and make myself a top line player. He's kind of thinking, hey, I'm playing my role. I know what my game is, and I have to do that. And I think that's also very evident coming up with what he had come out a couple days ago and kind of or point this out a few days ago and says, at the end of the day, it's a go out and earn it deal on this new contract is what he had to say. And it says, I've got a season in front of me. I've got to go and prove I belong, not only in the NHL, but on the Bruins roster, he added. I'm really excited for it. It's a fresh start. So kind of coming off that new deal as well, I think it's just another very good idea and a good mindset to come into here, that it's not, hey, I can't take this for granted. I need to come out here, prove that I'm on the team, prove that I can be a valuable asset to this team, and come out here and make it work, because I think that he acknowledges and knows how many bottom six players they've added and how, pretty easily anybody in this bottom six can be replaced. So let me know what you think about that as well from John Beecher. But that is all I have in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. I'm signing out though. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.